They were lost for centuries and appeared out of nowhere from the recesses of the past. The stunning ancient sites from our video remind us once again how many historical secrets are really still out there. From magnificent tombs to the traces of a bloody massacre to a gateway that leads straight to hell. Stay tuned to see what exciting myths have been brought back to reality. Hegra. In Saudi Arabia, about 400 kilometers from Medina, the remains of the ancient city of Hegra still bear witness to the former power of the Nabateans. Above all, the more than 100 rock tombs give us an overwhelming insight into the beliefs and rites of a long-vanished people. Carved directly into the stone, the facades with their carved serpents, sphinxes, and mystical figures prove that this Arab tribe maintained close relations with other cultures in the 1st century AD. While Hegra does not approach the dimensions of the former Nabatean capital of Petra in terms of pomp and grandeur, it is ahead of its world-famous counterpart in one respect. Unlike almost all the tombs at Petra, more than 30 of Hegra's tomb facades bear inscriptions carved into the rock. These official texts tell us not only the names of the owners, but sometimes also what the role they played in the society of the time. In view of the fact that the Nabateans left hardly any written evidence of their own, such discoveries are of immeasurable value. For although the Nabateans founded the first Arabian empire in history, our knowledge of them comes mainly from Greek and Roman historians. In its heyday, the Nabatean Empire was a full-fledged great power, maintaining cities and settlements in what is now Saudi Arabia, Israel, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. However, after the conquest by the Romans, the federation of nomadic tribes gradually declined. Their cities were abandoned and their culture destroyed. From then on, it would take until 1812 before the explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt rediscovered the first remains of the vanished empire in the middle of the desert. While the tombs of Hegra were deliberately laid out in such a way that they could be seen from the center of the city, the complexes were intended to represent the wealth and position of the respective family. This was also shown by the precious grave goods that were found here. These included everyday objects such as combs, coins, and cloths, as well as bronze bracelets, rings, and pearl necklaces. In addition, the examination of organic material revealed that the Nabateans rubbed the bodies of their dead with a mixture of fragrant resins and fats. Bloody Fortress. The following story is almost too disturbing to recount. On the Swedish island of Åland, archaeologists tracked down the ruins of a 1,500-year-old fortress complex. However, what was done to the inhabitants at the time resembles an unbearable horror story. For example, hundreds of people who had sought refuge in the complex were executed and then simply left to rot on the spot without burial. But that's not all. Some victims then had goat and sheep teeth stuffed into their mouths, very likely to humiliate them beyond death. The fact that the murderers left all the wealth of the inhabitants untouched also shows that the sole purpose here was to make a bloody example. Even the livestock was left behind and locked up to starve in agony. And this, although on an island with scarce resources, this was an absolute waste. To this day, we do not know why the inhabitants of the fortress were punished so cruelly. It seems that the inhabitants knew that the attack was imminent. Many families buried their jewelry and coins. It is obvious that we are dealing with the heinous work of a group that wanted to consolidate its power on the island. Even today, people from the surrounding villages tell stories about how they were warned not to visit the ruins when they were children, because supposedly the spirits of the dead are haunting them. The Cursed City. About 180 kilometers east of Ankara, the remains of Hattusa lie dormant. This was the town that served as the capital of the Hittites between the 17th and 12th centuries BC. With an area of about 180 hectares, Hattusa is one of the largest ancient city complexes in the world. Once enclosed by a city wall more than 6.5 kilometers long, more than 30 temples, the royal palace, and over 30,000 fragments of clay tablets have already been found here. And although the area has been under archaeological development since the late 19th century, most of the site is still waiting to be uncovered and expertly examined. According to an eerie myth, the city was once cursed by King Anita. A Hittite cuneiform text states, "In the night I took the city by force. but in its place I sowed weeds. Whoever becomes king after me and repopulates Hattusa, the weather god of heaven shall strike him." At the same time, this ominous warning coincides with the archaeological traces that have been uncovered in the city area. The village was indeed destroyed by a great fire around the year 1700 BC. However, Anita's curse did not stop the Hittite ruler Labarna from making Hattusa the capital of his empire in the 17th century BC, a title with which Hattusa was allowed to adorn himself for several centuries. But due to the rise of the Assyrians and the raids by hostile peoples, the Hittites visibly lost power. In the 12th century BC, Hattusa was finally conquered, plundered, and burned down by the Kaskians. In later centuries, the region was settled by several other peoples, such as the Romans or the Byzantines. However, Hattusa's heyday was already long over by then. Particularly exciting, in 2016, researchers uncovered a secret tunnel here that contained a cuneiform tablet. On it, a king can be seen explaining to the priests what they have to do during the ceremonies. Therefore, the experts believed that the secret tunnel had a sacred function. The Gate to Hell. Is it possible to pass through the gates of hell and survive the detour to the underworld? Well, the ancient Greeks believed just that, which is why they regularly performed mystical ceremonies at the supposed gates of hell. The sheer unbelievable. While the victims' perfectly healthy bulls died as if by magic during the rituals, the human priests returned unharmed. Even more, a few years ago, researchers discovered a stone gate at the site of the ancient site of Hierapolis in present-day Turkey, which was also suspected of leading straight to the world of the dead. And after all this time, it still hasn't lost any of its devilish power. Many birds that dare to get too close to the gate instantly drop dead. But in a rectangular open arena, adorned by a temple and peppered with raised stone seats, the ancients firmly believed that something supernatural was going on here. However, modern analysis should reveal the true, not-so-devilish background of this mystical site. For indeed, volcanic carbon dioxide is continuously pouring out of a fissure under Hierapolis. That the inhalation of high CO2 concentrations can quickly end fatally is common knowledge. But how was it that the animals died during the rituals and the humans did not? Well, this mystery has been cracked by a team of researchers from the University of Duisburg-Essen. When the gas evaporates during the day due to the heat of the sun, it forms a kind of CO2 lake on the floor of the arena during the cooler nights. About 40 centimeters above the ground, the carbon dioxide concentration is then 35%, enough to kill an animal or human within a few minutes. However, the concentration decreases rapidly with increasing altitude, and that's the point. The sacrificial animals were not large enough to keep their heads completely out of the CO2 lake, and when they became dizzy, their heads sank even lower. The priests' airways, however, were well above the invisible death zone. They may also have been standing on raised stones while doing so. In view of this, the people probably knew that the deadly breath of the hellhound Kerberos, or CO2, only reaches up to a certain height. The Golden City. When an archaeological find is mentioned in the same sentence as the rediscovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, one thing is immediately clear. We are dealing with an absolute world sensation. A few years ago, researchers near Luxor discovered a long-lost royal city that served as the seat of power of Akhenaten's father, Amenophis III. Thereby, the building remains, which slumbered the past 3,400 years in the sand, present themselves in such an outstanding condition that the experts do not shrink even from comparisons with the legendary Pompeii. Before Akhenaten made a radical change and established the cult around the sun god Aton, his father had led the people into a time of peace and prosperity. The fact that the so-called Golden City was brought back to light after all this time was due to a lucky coincidence. The team, led by Zahi Hawass, has not actually been looking for it. Originally, the archaeologists wanted to find Tutankhamun's mortuary temple. But after only a short time, the researchers uncovered the well-preserved ruins of mud brick buildings up to 3 meters high. As more and more structures and roads were freed from their sandy hiding places, the experts also came across numerous everyday objects and furnishings. just as if the inhabitants had left their homes only moments ago. That we are indeed dealing with the royal city of Amenophis III is again attested to by the rings, vessels, scarabs, and bricks discovered, all bearing the pharaoh's seal. While the excavations are still in full swing, the archaeologists have already been able to identify several distinct city quarters. For example, the southern part of the city housed mainly bakeries and kitchens, while another was reserved for administrative buildings and the houses of the highest members of society. Elsewhere, workshops and even a large necropolis could be uncovered. Possibly this complex could also house Tutankhamun's originally sought mortuary temple, researchers hope. And with that, thanks for watching. Remember to leave us a like and a subscription so you'll never miss out on one of our videos again. And now we're eager to hear what you think. Which rediscovered site fascinated you the most? And what other archaeological sensations have you heard about lately? We look forward to your comments.